Welcome to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. This week, we talk about something we may be even more unqualified to discuss than usual: women of color in pop music.
We may have bitten off a little bit more than we can chew on this one.
It sure seemed like a good idea when we were rambling about it about a week ago.
Yeah, because you were going to that show on this very topic, and I was like, "Hey, let's do a podcast about that."
I thought that was brilliant because I felt like I had just watched a documentary about women of color in music. Actually, I was on my way to
Yeah,
watch a documentary about women of color in music, and I figured, well, I'll know everything after this. And I don't really know much more than I did before, although I did enjoy it. The inspiration for this episode is a documentary and a museum exhibition I saw here in Joliet called Rebel Music: Women of Color Who Changed the Beat. And it was an exhibit. It was lots of costumes and posters, and there were probably about 50 people that showed up for this ribbon cutting for this exhibition that's going to be at the Joliet Area Historical Museum for, I think, another month. And as part of the opening night ceremonies, they played a documentary made by a woman that was really kind of a memoir type of thing. She grew up in Chicago, and she just discussed the fact that once every summer they would drive from Chicago to Joliet to visit family. And she used that trip, that annual trip, to discuss how her musical taste changed as she grew up and started out listening on the radio to what her parents, were making her listen to, lots of gospel because it was usually a Sunday morning trip. And then, as she got older, and I think she's probably a few years younger than us, although the documentary made her seem really old, and that bummed me out. But she would talk about wearing or taking her Walkman and listening to her own music as she made those trips instead of listening to what her folks were listening to. It was really an interesting look into just this little slice of this woman's life. It was really interesting.
very cool.
The director and creator of that documentary is named Vicki Howard. And as I said, she grew up, it sounded like she grew up on the south side of Chicago, but again, being the age she was, I think the trip from Chicago to Joliet, particularly at that age, felt like it was this long cross country trek for her. So it definitely stuck in her head as she made the drive. And the documentary was kind of interesting because it would show all these shots of basically they would take Route 66 instead of Highway 55. So instead of being about a 45 to 50-minute drive, it ended up being, probably an hour and a half to two. And she never understood why they had to take so long to go
Mm,
and take the long way around. But it was a nice framing device, I think, for her talking about all of these different genres of music that she was interested in as a youngster. And what I found really interesting was she did a Q&A after the documentary, and somebody asked her the question, not me, I wasn't bright enough to come up with this, but was asked her how she came up with the artist that she wanted to talk about in the film itself. And her response was is that she really was looking to talk about artists that had faced erasure,
mm,
which is to say that they were important, maybe even pivotal to certain musical movements or genres, but that they kind of gotten erased from our consciousness. And it really was a list of women that I didn't really know of, and it was interesting to hear about, in a very short documentary about how important these Black women were to genres like punk and grunge, for example. And in punk, she mentioned someone whose name kind of vaguely rang a bell. Polly Styrene was the name of this woman, and I kind of remember that being a name from punk, but I didn't realize that she was a Black woman. I think she had like a white dad or something like that. But she's one of those people that kind of got swept away, and all you hear about are the white punk bands. You don't hear a lot
right.
about women like her. And then in grunge, there was a woman named Tina Bell, and the band was called Bam Bam. And I wasn't aware of either of those, but
Mm.
apparently very, very crucial to that movement. And she had this kind of sad ending where I think she kind of died alone and penniless. And So that was a little depressing, but it was an interesting kind of kick in the pants to remind ourselves that there are people that kind of get glossed over or ignored, and unfortunately, too often those people tend to be, black people, brown people.
This isn't women, but even growing up, bands like Living Color were a big deal because they're freaking good, and two, at least in the rock space, there weren't a lot of African American. And then for me, bands like Fishbone and 24/7 Spies, I never got into rap, but it just shows my weakness as far as what I seek out for music because I don't think I've often sought out enough female singers. I've looked for those that are on the edges, but I knew of as a polystyrene, is that her name?
Polystyrene, I think, is how
Styrene,
they
my bad,
pronounce
yeah.
it.
Obviously I didn't know it well enough to remember her name. But I looked her up and yeah, it's sounds like it'd be a really fascinating show, and we're hoping to turn ours into something that might be somewhat fascinating or
Maybe a little
informative.
fascinating. Yeah, that was definitely what triggered your idea for the topic, though, was when I would talk about going, you were like, yeah, that'll make me, look at some other female artists.
Yeah.
And it did for me too, although what we decided to do was do a top five for this one. And there definitely are some female artists of color that I fall back on. So that kind of the same names floated to the top for me, as I went through and Googled and tried to see who else maybe I should consider for my list. But my overall top five is probably not going to be particularly surprising to you anyway, but still fun to do and fun to go then, as I usually do, listen to individual songs while I'm trying to come up with my list. I'll pull up songs and then add them to a queue and listen through for a half hour or an hour, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and for you, this is going to be retribution because I'm going to have to admit the greatness of all these artists that you listened to when we were roommates. So,
That's right. That's right. At least a couple of them. You're right. There's a little bit of overlap with earlier conversations, I think. One thing I'll note up front, because it's kind of, I don't know, it's not embarrassing, because again, we're picking a personal top five, so it's not like you can't be wrong about what you like. But I don't have any Latina women on my list.
I don't either. I purposely thought about seeking out someone. I'm, as Tom said, it's not a subject that either of us are overly prepared to discuss in depth. But I felt like then I would have just been picking for the sake of picking. It was hard. It was hard for me to come up. Well, when you start looking at women of color, especially historically, there's a ton that I wanted to pick. Sort of changing the subject to get off the fact that I don't know anything. Um, what's your guess on how many overlaps we had?
I'm going to say two.
Okay.
I feel like there's two that are there just because they're so important that it would be hard, I think, for you to ignore them or for me to ignore them. There's one that I don't know that you'll put on the list that is on my list. So that's the one. Is I'm not sure of the psychology of all of this. I'd say most likely there's two. And again, with maybe one exception, I don't think I'm naming anybody that's going to be really a surprise. But as I said, just to go back real quick to my point, like I know of Latina women that are very important, both in terms of Latin music and also in terms of pop music in general. But the problem is a lot of it was very kind of pop dance music, and I don't really listen to that and never really have. So I appreciate, for example, how important Selena was.
Right.
I appreciate Shakira, Christina Aguilera. There are women that I know are out there, and I don't mind listening to their music, but they're not going to make my top five list because I just don't. I don't own their music, or I don't have it in my library, and I don't listen to it. I don't put it on playlists or mixtapes or that kind of thing. Whereas the women we're going to talk about have been on tons of playlists that you and I have exchanged over the years, and along with others that just didn't quite make my top five list.
Yeah, I think my depth of knowledge, as I said, isn't as strong as I wish it was. So some of the other ones, as you said, are probably pretty obvious. So
This seems like a great episode for people to use the email address and email us about how we're wrong or who we missed, because I think it opens up for a great discussion. And I will tell you that I did not get a chance to talk to Vicky at the museum because so many people wanted to talk to her. But I did talk to a woman who worked very closely with her and actually also works with the museum, who happens to be a sound engineer on top of everything else. And I am hoping to get her on as a guest somewhere in the future. And maybe we should have waited to discuss this until then. But she's not a musician necessarily. I think she's just a fan and just a very interested person. And I'm not going to name her name because she hasn't responded to me yet. But if she does, I'm going to try to drag her on the show as soon as I can, and maybe we can recap a little bit our list, and she can tell us where we were wrong.
yeah, plenty of opportunity to tell us where we're wrong.
Exactly. Exactly. She will have to stand in line, I suppose. But,
Well, do you want to get to this? Ready to show off how dumb we are?
absolutely. So I guess I'm ready. How do you want to do it?
Well, what we've done for some previous ones is we take turns revealing our list from 5 to 1, and we'll chat about the similarities and the differences, and then we'll tally up. So for fifth place, you get 1 vote. For first place, you get 5. We'll tally them up and come up with a third song in top 5 list of most important or most preferred. I'm not sure what our title is. Singers, female singers of color.
Sounds good.
That's
Yeah,
the
I would
title.
say for us would be top 5 favorite because
Favorite. Yep.
again, lacking the qualifications to say whether as historians or otherwise, as music historians or otherwise, I don't know that we're ready to say they're the top 5 best ever. But for us,
All right, I'll start off. I'll jump in the water first.
all right.
Reveal my. So this is my outside the parameters of what you might see on a normal list, but she's one of my favorites. Her and her band. I went with Brittany Howard, the lead singer of Alabama Shakes.
Oh, that's a great one.
Her voice presence is just fantastic. I really really like her.
Yeah, you know what? I'm embarrassed to say I forgot about Alabama Shakes. I agree with you. She's got such a cool voice in terms of contemporary performers. She is
Yeah,
awesome,
yeah,
and she has made playlists, and she is on. I won't say she's on my regular rotation, but every once in a while, I'm just like, I got to listen to this woman sing.
yeah. And when you corrected it to favorites, I stuck with my list. I was gonna but yeah, she's definitely one of my favorites. And whenever she's been putting out solo material as well, also very strong, but I think she's best when she's with the Alabama Shakes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great band and a lot of fun to listen to. Good choice, man. I already feel like I'm unqualified.
You'll be fine.
So this one will also be my off the beaten path. This artist has made at least one playlist that you and I exchanged or alternated back actually before the podcast, I think. It is the hip hop artist named No Name.
Hmm.
She's also a poet. She started, I think, doing like poetry slams and that kind of stuff. I believe she is from the Chicago area. She's fairly highly acclaimed. She's also kind of controversial. I want to say her most recent album, maybe not her most recent release, because truthfully, I'm not sure what she's put out in the last year or so. But a couple years ago, she put out an album and she caught some hell because one of her collaborators was a male rapper. Apparently, one of his lyrics was kind of anti-Semitic.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you could be kind of anti-Semitic, but anyway, she put it on. And she was the producer. It was her album. She took the grief and she didn't back down from it. She said, "Look, I'm not gonna take responsibility for someone else's lyric." I don't know if that's fair, since I think she could have easily pulled it or had him change it. She's also, I read a little bit about her because I don't know much about her other than I love her music. I love the way she raps. I love the way she sings. I love the way she writes. But she is very, very unhappy that apparently her music does appeal to kind of a white audience. And
Mm.
she doesn't really have much interest or thought about that other than I suppose she's happy, if she's selling music or people are coming to her shows. But she is I think a very Afrocentric artist, and it kind of irritates her that, for some reason what she's done has appealed to a pretty large a kind of white listenership. I'm one of those, and I think it's
Yeah.
because she's awesome. I think it's because of her perspective, and I think she's very unique. But anyway, it's really close to being a 15-way tie for fifth. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many people that didn't make my list that maybe, at least historically speaking, should be in front of No Name. But she was that one I wanted to reach for and at least maybe recommend or talk about somebody who other people haven't necessarily listened to.
Very good choice. I will have to. I'm sure you've probably put her on a playlist.
Yeah, I know I
I'll have to go
did.
back.
I know there was one song in particular. The title escapes me right now, but I do think there were a couple lists where I snuck her in kind of in the middle of a list.
I've already marked her following her on YouTube Music, so
Cool.
check her out. All right, here's where the retribution begins. Number four for me is Tina Turner.
Ah, there we go. There's one
I
of our overlaps, right? I'm sure you realize
yeah,
that.
and she's probably higher on your list, and it's both recognizing that she's pretty damn good. I love to give you grief about artists that I think are a little more popular. She was one, but I'd probably stand outside your door and like sway and listen to her music, and then when you'd open the door, I'd walk away. So
Yeah, back in the late 80s and even into the 90s, she was such an icon.
yeah,
And the thing about her is just that, I mean, she came from the kind of what's the word I'm trying to think of? The stereotypical background for a black singer, which is gospel and blues and what have you, R&B. But by the time the 80s came, she was singing rock and pop music as well as anybody on the face of the earth. And she just had so much power in her voice. And yeah, she is on my list, and she is a bit higher on my list
yeah, I would think
than
so.
four. But
uh,
I applaud the choice because I still love Tina Turner, and we talked about her not too long ago in a completely different context on the podcast, and I went back and ended up listening to a couple of her albums for about 2 or 3 days. I was just kind of going back and listening to all that stuff. And it's still so good, so great.
so
And my number four is Lauryn Hill,
yeah,
former lead singer for the Fugees, and the album "The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill" is one of my favorites. And the only thing I don't like about that album is what I didn't like about the kind of hip hop music at that time, which was that they always had to put in all kinds of little interstitial conversations between every song. And it irritated me a little back then. Now it drives me crazy because I just want to hear her sing the song. But she has a beautiful voice. It's hard to say she's underrated, but I don't think she ever kind of hit it quite as big as maybe she should have. But she did have her time. And again, if you go back and listen to those old Fugees things or the Miseducation, it's really good.
yeah, she was one. As I looked through the internet lists, she popped up, and I knew you listened to her. I didn't want to be fake. I just didn't listen to her enough for her to make
Yeah.
my list of favorites. I mean, I know how good she is. I'm not sure if you put it on playlist or I just picked up on it, but anything I've heard from her, I've liked and really respected. I just haven't listened to her enough to make my list.
Yeah, both with the Fugees and on her own, she would definitely was one of the last where the album really meant something. Like from start,
Yeah,
you wanted to listen from start to finish. There were singles, and she got radio play, and it's not like people didn't know who she was by any means, but it was always cool to listen from the very beginning to the end. Although, again, you did get a lot of kind of conversation in between that. It was kind of fun when people first started doing that, but it got really old for me in a hurry.
yeah. All right. So it continues. One of my favorite songs right now is a song called Whitney Houston's National Anthem. So I'm gonna go with Whitney Houston as my number three. And I don't know what else to say. She was super pop, and so I'm gonna ruin the surprise now. Mariah Carey is not on the list of my list. She's on a lot of other lists that I've seen on the internet. I just never. She's got a great voice and all that, but Whitney Houston was at a whole nother level of just
I agree.
impressive. And if her life hadn't been cut short, I would have loved to hear the music she made as as she grew older, and just she was awesome. And it's really hard for me to say that because she's about as popular as you
Yeah.
can ask for.
Yeah, she certainly was that, but I fell into the same thing. I didn't necessarily love the genre that she sang
Yeah,
mostly in,
right.
uh, but she had such a powerful voice that you'd hear her one of her singles on the radio, and you just couldn't believe the way she sang,
I
and
know.
on top of which she was absolutely beautiful. So I definitely had a thing for Whitney Houston back in the day. She did not make my list, but she did not make it for that reason, kind of that Mariah Carey reason, which is it. And I've got a couple others that probably fall within that category where they're very popular and very important on top of that, but just not in my sweet spot as far as what I like to listen to.
Yeah.
All right, my third choice, my third favorite artist is will be no surprise to you, and other than the fact that it's only third, is Tracy Chapman.
Hmm.
I love Tracy Chapman. These last three of mine are almost interchangeable, and I just love listening to her sing. Her debut album, I don't know that it's probably in my top 10 all time ever albums to listen to. And she made good work after that as well. But there is nothing like that very first album that had Fast Car on it, and she such a cool voice, but such a different delivery, and she's just so iconic, just so individual, I guess.
Yes. And she's so unique that it's hard to describe her, which
Yeah,
is what you're trying to say, because I know
I was
you.
trying to say that. I wasn't saying it, but I was trying to say it.
Well, you're gonna be surprised. Number two for me was Tracy Chapman. Um,
Ah, a
and
notch above me.
yeah, and it's because I Whitney Houston made the list because of her pure talent. I agree with you. Probably probably wouldn't catch me too many times, you know, jamming on a Whitney Houston album. But Tracy Chapman is right up my alley. I mean, you introduced her to me. To this day, I still go back and listen to her stuff, and it's just that uniqueness. It's got the folk, the rock. I mean, her songwriting. Not that others haven't had fantastic songwriting, but I don't know if there's any artist that you listened to that I didn't. She's the one that you turned me on to, and I've not stopped listening since. And you said that first album was a remarkable accomplishment, just an incredible album from beginning to end.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not seen her lumped into that genre, but she's an Americana artist
Yeah,
as much as anybody from that decade, I think, and managed to push a kind of music out into the public and onto regular airplay on the radio in a way that a lot of others just didn't do.
yep,
She's just cool as hell. So Tracy Chapman was your number two, correct?
yep. That's two overlaps.
Yeah, two, and those I thought those were the two. There is still a third that may hit it. My second pick, and the only surprise for you, I think, may be that it's second and not first, is Tina Turner. I
Hmm.
I love Tina. We talked about her already. I had to put her behind my number one just in terms of overall historical impact and influence and just the power of her voice. But Tina is number two for me. I've rambled on about her in the past enough. She is something else.
If you go with people that deserve to make the list, one that I hated leaving off was Beyonce, just
Right.
because of what she's done, and like genre crossing and otherwise. Um, and this one is as much historical and power of her voice as anything, but I went number one as Aretha Franklin.
Well, Chris, me too.
You're good.
And for the same reasons. That's why that was a wild card for me because she deserves to be number one on
Yeah,
everybody's list. But again, I didn't know how much you listened to Aretha, but I do know how much you recognize
yeah.
how important she is to, well, to to gospel, to soul, to R&B, to rock. She just there's nobody's voice like Aretha Franklin's voice. I just uh I just rewatched the Blues Brothers a few weeks ago, and the scene where she sings the song "Think,"
Mm.
and I don't know. I watched the movie. I love that. I enjoyed the scene as much as I ever have. And then after the movie was over, I put Aretha on and listened to Aretha for about another hour after the fact. She's just there's never been anyone like her, and it would be a travesty if we did not put her at our number one spot.
I totally agree. All right, so there are a bunch of lists out there. I'm not sure which one to put the most stock in. So let's just take a couple. So Forbes put out a big list a couple years ago, and they put out a top 50. We won't go through the whole top 50, but I like their top five. So their number one though is Whitney Houston.
Is that
Number two
right?
is yeah, number two is Aretha Franklin. Three is Beyonce. Four is Ella Fitzgerald, and five is Nina Simone. And then six is Etta James, and seven is Billie Holiday. So the top seven at least are mostly weighted towards historically important, with Whitney being a bit of a surprise at number one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm a little surprised, and not that she's on the list, but that she's ahead of Aretha.
Yeah, yeah.
That seems interesting to me. Yeah, I had a list that I just Googled up. That the website is called wordinblack.com, and it's
Hmm.
just a list. And I don't even think it's in any particular order now that I look at it. But this is top five Black women powerhouse singers, and the first one it's a similar list: Whitney, Aretha, Mariah Carey, Tina Turner, and Beyonce. So there's a couple names there that we didn't put on our list, but my list of runners up are just kick
Yeah.
ass performers. I felt the same way about Beyonce, other than her most recent album, which I absolutely loved. Most of her stuff is a little too pop for me, and
Right.
I've never been a big fan. And I feel that way about Rihanna, for example, who deserves mention. Alicia Keys is not exactly the same, but she's someone I just didn't listen to very much, and I think that's bad on me. I think she deserves to be listened to much more. There's I saw a list that had Brandy on them, for example. I never
Yeah.
listened to Brandy.
Right.
I can't speak at all to that. But even if you go back, there's Donna Summer.
Yep.
I love Donna Summer, but I didn't really like disco, and other than hearing it constantly for a few years on the radio, she kind of faded for me. Sade is one that I just love her voice, but I didn't think she was top five worthy anyway. And Diana Ross, Janet Jackson, those are iconic female performers, but they're just not going to probably not going to make your list or my list,
Right.
and maybe just because they were so popular. But there are a couple more contemporary women that are very close to me to being in that top five, and certainly could have been in that slot that No Name had, like her. HER, I think she's amazing. I think she's kind of Alicia Keys like. She's very just an amazing musician as well as singer, and I love her style. There's a woman named Joy Aladokun, and she's had a couple album releases, I believe, and I don't love everything she does, but her good songs are unbelievable. Like her
Yeah.
potential is just fantastic. So she didn't make my list, but I probably listen to her as much, certainly more than Beyonce or Rihanna in general.
And I am not pairing this because it's a white country singer that she sings with, but she does have a great song with I think Chris Stapleton. Joy Oladoku it does.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. She does. I didn't realize that. You mentioned that to me once. We talked
Yeah.
about her way back. I think I might have put
Yeah.
her on a playlist. And yeah,
Sadly,
that's a
that
cool song
I'm not
too.
saying that some white male had to lift her up, but that's what introduced me to
Yeah.
her, and I started listening to her music more. So,
So we had three overlaps on our list,
yep,
and based upon assigning points, and you will probably need to check my math, but our top five list is going to be our number one performer is Aretha Franklin.
yep,
Our number two performer is Tracy Chapman, who edged out Tina Turner.
yep, makes sense.
And then our final two, though, let's see, followed then by Whitney Houston at number four and Lauryn Hill at number five.
Yep, it's a good list.
So it's a good list. It's an old guy's list, right? There's really nobody contemporary in there. The contemporary ones we did list, we put towards the bottom, so they didn't quite break through. But it'll help make a hell of a mixtape. I'll say that.
Well, that was the part we were most worried about. I think we held up okay. We did all right.
Not too bad. I'd like to hear what other people have to say. Please email us at thirdsongin@gmail.com or comment on the Spotify page or our website and let us know what you think. Let us know who we missed. And you can tell us how wrong we were.
Yes, we love being told how wrong we are.
Well, we're
I tell
used
Tom
to
all
it
the time.
anyway.
Yeah, we are used to it. All right, that's going to bring us to post facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
Post facto is our opportunity to correct any mistakes we may have made. We've also recently been using it to follow up on earlier recommendations or staff picks, or just to make sure we're updating information as it comes across hot off the wires. You have any post factos for us this week?
Actually, I do. I have a somewhat surprising one, or unscheduled one. Let's go for that. So I regularly send my blogs to my children, and my son Eli is obviously my biggest fan. I'll tell you why with my post facto. So I sent him the latest one, which is full of curse words, or the one that was full of curse words, which by the time this releases is going to be a good month ago. But look for the Mount Rushmore of cursing as the title. And I was a little afraid that maybe I'd cross the line with him, I know he's 21, but telling your son, his dad curses like a freaking sailor. But he wrote back and he said, I loved it. He goes, I know you're not going to see this, he said, but your writing style reminds me of Robert Dugoni, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who wrote The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell. I don't know if you ever read that book.
I did
But
not.
I started reading that book last night actually, and it's so good. There's no way it's my writing style. I appreciate the support of my son. But
Sure.
I'm already I think almost 25% through it. I just read the hell out of it last night. It's a fascinating book about a kid who was born with red eyes. So his real name is Sam Hill, but he got a nickname of Sam Hell or Devil Boy. So I'm now in the early stages of what his life was like when he was a kid. So I will update when I finish that book, which at this pace will be pretty soon. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested to hear. Plus, I want you'll need to send me a link. I want to
okay,
check
I'll do
that
that.
out. My post facto is actually an update. I recommended as a staff pick about 2 or 3 episodes ago the book Expensive Basketball by Shea Serrano. Shea Serrano is a guy I've also recommended as a staff pick because of his Substack, which comes out on a weekly basis. He writes a movie Substack that I just love called Good Movie, but he kind of broke into the world of pop culture. I think he wrote for Grantland, the website that Bill Simmons started way back when. And he no longer works with Simmons, but he's very similar to him in my mind. He's very funny. He has a style that brings me in no matter what he writes about. Expensive Basketball is basically about NBA players, and there's a handful of WNBA players he talks about. But it's mainly about pro basketball, which is not a sport I watch on a regular basis, even though they are athletes that I admire greatly. He loves the NBA and he loves professional basketball in general. He grew up in San Antonio. He's a huge Tim Duncan fan and a Spurs fan. He has a style of writing that just makes you interested in stuff that you wouldn't necessarily be interested in. Like he'll break down individual plays in this book, and they're all short chapters, usually about a specific player. And I will tell you, this is probably the sign of an excellent book for the 21st century because I would finish a chapter, then I would grab my phone and pull up YouTube
Mhm.
to watch what he just described. And
Mm.
every single time his description was spot on, but even more kind of funny and interesting than what you were watching on the screen. He's a fantastic writer. My goal is someday maybe to get him as a guest on the show, and I message him occasionally through his Good Movie Substack and say, hey, what do you think about being on the show? Or hey, just read your book. I'm just trying to butter the guy up to see if I can get him on because I think he's probably 15 years younger than us at least, but I want to grow up to write like that guy. He has a fantastic style, and I really enjoyed the book. I very similar to the one you just described. I finished it in no time. I think I started it on one Sunday afternoon. I think I was done by Tuesday. All right, it's time for Loft of Wisdom.
You better open up your eyes, babe, because fools do get wise.
It loft of wisdom, to put it simply, are quotes. Tom and I started doing this in college when we'd scribble down quotes on our wooden bed lofts. Now we're scribbling them down on the internet, or at least on our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. So, Tom, I think you might have struggled with this one. What'd you come up with?
I did struggle with it mainly because I forgot we were doing Loft of Wisdom. But I did some quick scrambling, and I actually took your advice, which is I looked at my list of performers who almost made my top five, and I looked to see what kind of quotes they had. And one of the women that deserves mention that didn't make either of our lists is Mavis Staples. And again, she's part of the bedrock of rock and roll as far as I'm concerned. She sang with the band way back when, in the late 60s, early 70s. She was part of the Staple Singers, which was a gospel and eventually kind of a pop music group with her dad, Pop Staples, and sisters and what have you. And she's just amazing. Her most recent stuff has been produced by Jeff Tweedy. So she's still out there. She's still making music. She's got to be in her 80s. Amazing voice and just so important, I think, to the kind of music that you and I listen to. And I found a quote from her, and it just, I don't think it relates necessarily to what we've been talking about today, but it does relate to things I have to keep in mind these days. And her quote is, "You have to have forgiveness in your heart. You will just take yourself under if you keep being angry." And I've spent a lot of time recently angry, and that's kind of a nice reminder that there's more to the world.
Yeah, it's easy to forget sometimes.
It sure is.
Unless you just put your head in a hole and don't get any notifications about what's going on in the world,
Right.
which
Don't
is
read the
almost
paper.
impossible.
Yes. It is
All
hard.
right, I went a similar direction for choosing an artist who I wanted to put on the list. Mine's a little bit more lighthearted, if you take divorce as being lighthearted. So the artist I wanted to put on was, and I hope I pronounced her name right, it's Rhiannon Giddens. She's from the Carolina Chocolate Drops, who are a fantastic string band, old time music band right out of Durham, North Carolina, which is right up the road from me. And she has a song, or her band, sorry, has a song entitled "No Man's Mama." And my quote is, "I can say what I like, I can do what I like. I'm a gal who is on a matrimonial strike, which means I'm no man's mama now." I just love the lighthearted, the empowerment throughout the song is she's celebrating because she sings it, just the celebration of being free and not married anymore. And I'm not advocating for divorce. I'm just saying it's a fun song. And I often listen to mopey ass songs, and I thought this was a great line. So
That's a great phrase. Matrimonial strike.
I know,
That I
that's
like
why-
a lot.
that's why I chose it. So
That's really good.
I would encourage folks to check her out. She has solo material, a lot of great material with Carolina Chocolate Drops. And she does, for you, Tom, she does a song on her second to last, there's an album, I think it's from 2022, 2023. I'll have to look, all original material because she oftentimes she tries to restore ownership of these old folk songs and old timey music to the cultures that they came from. But she did do a song or an album of all originals, and Jason Isbell joins her on it. I think
Huh?
there's at least one song. So he is
Yeah, I missed
everywhere,
it.
but he's great. I feel like he's a nice endorsement of how good she is.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I'll have to find out.
All right, that'll bring us to staff picks.
Random, just around the corner from you.
Staff picks are recommendations from your two favorite podcasters. We try to come up with something that's either brand new or on the horizon. Occasionally, we want to recommend something that we just became aware of that may have been around for a while. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, let me go first. I went with a female singer, although not a singer of color, Katie Pruitt, who is quickly rocketing up my list of favorite musicians. She did her last album is one of my favorites in the last 4 or 5 years. But she just recently recorded a song about Minneapolis. I mean, it cuts to the core of what's going on in our country right now. And I'm going to read the first stanza, first verse, which is not pretty at all. On the streets of Minneapolis, they're back harassing immigrants, a fake badge and a violent wish to tread. He was good, a peaceful activist, a parked car stopping traffic when a madman in a ski mask shot her dead. So she is just, I'm sorry, the title of the song is Kindness Isn't Common Sense, which is an interesting title, but it's a fantastic song. It's not going to make you any happier about how things are going, but you got a lot of important artists singing about what's going on. So it is nice to have the return of protest music again, and it's being done by some of our favorite artists.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have not listened to that yet. It's going on the list right now. My staff pick is a cover song, and I originally threw it on the outline because I wanted to get it up there before you did, because it is a song by the artist Joe Pernice, who you have recommended highly, both as a solo artist and as part of the Pernice Brothers, and I believe another band, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't he perform with someone else?
Well, it's Scud Mountain Boys.
That's
was
right.
one of his earlier bands. Yep.
That's right. I forgot. He and his brother also in Scud Mountain Boys, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so we both listened to Scud Mountain Boys back in the 90s, I want to say, and you continued to follow Joe Pernice, particularly the Pernice Brothers, more than I did as they went along. He kind of out of the blue last week released a single of the song "Save Me," which is a cover of the Aimee Mann song. Which it's when you hear that title and you think about Aimee Mann singing that song, you're like, how could anybody else possibly sing that song in as powerful a way as she does? Because I love that song as performed by Aimee Mann. And I got to tell you, Joe Pernice hit the mark. I have listened to that song 30 times in the last week or so. I can't get enough of it. I think it's fantastic. I don't remember, it may be the precursor to an album that's coming out. But even if it's not, grab the single, listen to it as soon as you can. Save Me by Joe Pernice, the cover of the Aimee Mann song.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed that because I follow him. He pops up in my recommendations all the time on YouTube Music. I'm gonna check it out as soon as we hang up today.
Yeah, it's great, and I like Joe Pernice anyway. There's just so much emotion, and it's just so strong a song. I was shocked, as I said, because I think Aimee Mann's performance of the song is amazing, and he takes it a different way, and obviously has a completely different voice, but definitely worthwhile.
All right, that brings us to our playlist picks.
Every episode, Chris and I choose a song for our season-long playlist. We are in season 11, and we have 2 new songs to add. We generally, I believe, try to pick a song for the playlist that matches the theme or the guest of an episode. And I certainly attempted to do that myself this episode. So I picked the song I Used to Love Him, which is from The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I actually picked this song because I didn't think she would make our overall top five, and she snuck in. So I was trying to spread the wealth a little bit because I wasn't sure how much we would talk about her, and I'm a little surprised that she got into the top five there. But this is a duet with Mary J. Blige, who again, amazing singer, amazing performer, deserves mention in any discussion of great women of color in pop music. As with that entire album, the song kind of melds rap music and soul music together, R&B. It is a great showcase for both of their voices, and I'm excited to put this one on our season 11 playlist.
All right. I wasn't necessarily tempted to put this woman on because I love her voice, but there's only a couple songs that I'm aware of. She was in a band. Her name is Kamara Thomas, Kamara Thomas. She's one of the lead singers for a band that only lasted for an album or two called Earl Greyhound. Yeah.
I love that title. I love the name of that band.
And I know for a fact I've put this on playlist for you before. The song is Yeah, I Love You. It's just a rockin' badass song, and she's a rockin' badass lead singer for it. The album is Soft Targets from 2010. And I like them, but I love this song way more than anything else they put out. She's come out with some solo material that I've been checking out lately. I was curious what happens to artists like that who put out such fantastic songs and then sort of disappear. She's still around, and definitely like some of her newer solo stuff, but this song belongs on. It's not into the greats that we put on the list, but she's a powerfully voiced female singer of color that folks should be checking out her music. So it's Yeah, I Love You by Earl Greyhound.
Cool.
All right, that's taking us to the end of episode 7, season 11, the third song in, which is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois.
You can email us at thirdsongin@gmail.com. This is a great opportunity to tell us how dumb we are or what we missed. So email us with your questions, your comments, your suggestions, your top 5 lists of top 5 women of color in pop music. It would be excellent to get those lists because it'll give us more stuff to listen to.
Exactly. You can also message us through our website to tell us how stupid we are. Thirdsonginpodcast.com. If you don't feel the urge to tell us how dumb we are, you can check out a lot of other stuff that's on our website. We have links to the podcast itself, links to our blog, various information on the guests that we've had on the show before, and we will have some reference to the top 5, whether it's on the website or on Facebook or somewhere else. But put it up there as a reminder to what we discussed on the show today.
Please follow, rate, and review the podcast on all of the platforms. Please give us your fucking stars. I just built an addition to my house to put all the stars in. It's actually just a lean-to on the side of the house, but I like to call it an addition. You can rate and review the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube Music. We're now on Pandora and Overcast as well. So please share our podcast. Please tell people about it. Help us get the word out.
We ask you to do the same for our playlists on almost all those same services, at least the music ones: Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, and Apple Music. There's a season-long playlist for each season. We're currently in season 11. These are our like 13th and 14th songs, something like that. We also have playlists whenever we have, most of the time when we have a guest on. You can find those by searching for Third Song In. If you're not quite finding what you want, at least on Spotify, search for Tom, T Politek. If you find his account, that'll more easily direct you to the playlists. And we ask you to, if you can, rate them, or at least give them a thumbs up. And if you can, share them with others. So whatever you think of the podcast, we feel strongly that we're putting out some really great playlists.
Please look for Third Song In on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. We try to post on a pretty regular basis, not only stuff about the podcast and upcoming guests, but also information about past and future guests, their dates, their details, links to the stuff that they're creating. Please follow us and share us on social media.
We've talked about the blog a couple times. You can access it through our website. You can more easily access it through Substack. You can subscribe to our site, our page there, and we publish a new blog every week on Thursdays. And if you're on Substack, you'll get it in your inbox first thing on Friday morning. That's a good way for us to understand what's working and what's not with our blogs. And there's a lot of other great stuff on Substack as well.
You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thank you for listening. Can you hear me okay? It seems.
Yeah, you sound good. Well, as good as you can sound. So,
do I sound handsome?
You sound ugly and old.
Because I'm like, I don't think we said anything stupid, and I think it's fair, even though we're two fucking old white guys.
That could go viral. I think that's.
You think that's it? That's the one that's gonna break us, baby.
That'll be the last episode we do, and then we'll go viral.
Good night, everybody.
Call us back to the microphone.
We love you, San Antonio.